Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ahmed Farouk, and I am the Ambassador of Pakistan in Denmark. I would like to welcome all the participants that have signed up for this webinar arranged by the Embassy of Pakistan with regards to providing information to Pakistani tech companies on how to register and open a local office in Denmark. Very briefly, I would like to say that the Pakistan Embassy has been making efforts for facilitating the entry of Pakistani tech companies in the Danish market. And in that regard, we have undertaken a number of initiatives. The reason being that while Pakistan has been providing tech-related services, IT services to many countries in the world, but we remain less known in Denmark. So what we have done is that we have, making use of the new technology available, we had some webinars organized to provide information to the Pakistani companies with regards to the overall tech scene in Denmark. Then we organized a series of virtual tech talks by Pakistani tech companies on the cutting edge work that they are doing, so that the companies in Denmark become aware of the capabilities of the Pakistani tech companies. In the month of December, we had a delegation of 8 Pakistani IT companies that participated in the Digital Tech Summit that was held in Copenhagen on the 30th November and 1st December. And that event basically provided the Pakistani companies an opportunity for interacting with other Danish companies, as well as to have a better understanding of the overall tech scene in Denmark. Now, some of the companies that had participated in that event had an interest in understanding how they could set up a local office here, because that while participating in such a physical event, they would be able to generate some business leads. But in order to have a more sustained business flow, it was important that they should have some local office here. So that is why we, with the cooperation of Danish stakeholders, are organizing today's event. Here I would like to mention that we had reached out to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have a participation of Invest in Denmark, who are going to give an overview of the overall investment framework. Then we contacted the Danish Business Authority, which is the organization responsible for registering companies in Denmark. We also have participation of lawyers, two lawyers here, who are going to give information with regards to tax-related issues, as well as the process for opening of bank accounts. What I would like to, in terms of the housekeeping, I would say, like to request everyone to switch off their mics. We will have all the presentations, and that will be followed by question, answer, and discussions. So I would encourage all the participants from Pakistan to ask as many questions or as they have, so that they are in a better picture of understanding this process. So without further ado, I would request first Mr. Andreas Boer from the Invest in Denmark. He's the team leader for the tech team, to give his presentation. Over to you, Andreas.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you very much for organizing this event. It's something that we appreciate very much, reaching out to potential partners in a very large market as Pakistan. So thank you for that. I sent a PowerPoint, and I don't know if it's possible to show it. Unfortunately, thank you very much.
Can you see it?
I can see it. I would normally have shared my desktop, but ironically, here at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are a little inhibited on the tech front when it comes to communication, since we can only use Teams and Skype. So I had to log on from my private phone. I'm sorry about that. So I will just say when to change slides. But maybe just first a few words about Invest in Denmark as an organization. We are part of the, yes, please, that slide is fine. Invest in Denmark is part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So we are the branch of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that works with attracting foreign investment into Denmark. By investment, we mean companies establishing activities in Denmark. So creating a new Northern European headquarter, R&D facility. It could be a sales office for that matter. That's our job. We work free of charge. No one will ever receive an invoice from us. Our KPI is to attract as many companies to Denmark in order to create as many jobs as possible in Denmark. One of our sectors, we work in several sectors, but one of them is tech. And I am responsible for the tech sector. The way we operate is that we have our network of embassies abroad, and where we have advisors, and then we have a pretty robust team here in Denmark supporting those foreign companies, in this case Pakistani companies, that would want to come to Denmark and take a look at the possibilities here. We help them establish businesses, help them through red tape, get the right connections, set them up with partners that they need to know in the ecosystem. That could be with researchers, other companies. It can also be the practical sides of establishing a business, where we can also help facilitate that process. Now, in regards to what we do here in our little tech team, we have a number of focus areas. Those are seen on the slide here. They are quantum technology, which is a very small area so far. Then we have robotics. Included in the robotics category are drones. We have a very strong robotics and drone ecosystem in Fynen at this city of Odense. It's going to be even better. I don't know if any of the participating companies are working with drones, but we're expecting that from only a few years from now, all of the island of Fyn basically will be available for test flights of drones beyond visual line of sight, which is something quite unique in the world. Another category is sound technology. It's a traditional Danish strong point, but it's not limited to hearing aids and speakers and headphones. It's also very sophisticated sound technology in order to monitor, for instance, wind turbine based on sound engineering. There are many options. There is a strong research environment in Aalborg. Then we have a category called wireless and mobile technology. We are going to rename that communications. It is also included in that category would be cybersecurity, which is a nascent strong point of Denmark. And then we have our largest category where we do most of our work, and that's within software development. which is obviously an extremely broad category. So next slide, please. So here we have our target areas. It's important to say that we help anyone within the tech sector. So if you don't see your own company falling into these target areas, no worry, because as you see, there are numerous possibilities, since tech is within tech you have the technology as such, which is our focus areas, but then you have the use cases, and there are infinite numbers of those, and that's basically what this slide illustrates, that there are so many possibilities for applying tech, and so of course it is also done in Denmark. This slide is basically to illustrate that we work with basically all kinds of companies within the tech sector. So next slide, please. Yes, this again is to illustrate where we see our little team here. We specialize here in Denmark in my team here in knowing everything there is to know about a certain subsector, those I just mentioned before. They tend to be very early on this this hype scale, because we hope that they will become the next blockbuster sectors in the Danish economy. But as I also said, most of the companies that we help, they are in the mature phase, so beyond the hype, basically. That is certainly true for many of the companies that invest in Denmark, but it's just to say that we do have strong knowledge in upcoming areas like AI also, and I mentioned the other sectors too. Next slide, please. So this is a map of Denmark with some of the research institutions. Actually, I believe I put the wrong one on, and that sorry about that. I left out Copenhagen in this one. It's an old one from another presentation, but we have some research institutions, and this map is actually in this presentation maybe pretty good, because people tend to focus on the very strong research areas in Denmark, with the technical university, the IT university. There is a very large fintech scene in Copenhagen, but there are other universities in Denmark. They all specialize in certain areas within tech. For instance, the Northern University of Aalborg, which is world leading in sound engineering, which is obviously very useful when you create computer games, for instance, or electric cars, or there are many use cases for that. The second city of Denmark, Aarhus, is home to some very strong software developers and research institutes co-located at Aarhus University. And then, of course, we have Odense with a robotics cluster that is in many ways world leading, and it has attracted some major investments from foreign companies and created a large number of jobs, and we are expecting that this is only the beginning. Now, with this map, I think we can turn to the last slide. Sorry. Yes, next slide, please. There we go. So the question is, I've been saying a lot about the Danish tech sector here, and that it's good. It is very good. So one of the reasons for that is Denmark is a highly digitized country. Danes are using technology as an integral part of their lives every day. We communicate digitally with the public sector, which of course is quite an important part of our lives in Denmark. Businesses are totally digitized. As you see here, also the population has we are number one in the world when it comes to the view on AI, which illustrates an openness to new technologies. This creates an environment of entrepreneurship and a great environment to develop new solutions. And this is basically why Denmark is a great place to invest. And on top of that, all the things mentioned here in the other part of the slide, which I will not go through in detail, but basically these are numbers illustrating how easy it is to do business in Denmark compared to other countries. When you do these rankings, there are obviously different ones, and they tend to fluctuate a little bit from year to year. But in the larger perspective, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to the ease of doing business, Denmark and Singapore are normally in top of this, regardless of how you calculate it. And certainly we are a better destination than most of our neighboring countries here when it comes to the ease of doing business, at least. In many other aspects too, in taxation, labor laws, Denmark is for businesses a very good country. So last slide, please. Oh, yeah, this is, sorry, I forgot that. There was second to last slide. This is just the front page of some of the strategies the government has published lately. There is a new digital strategy is foreseen. We expect it to come out maybe this year, early next year. This is just to illustrate that there is this Danish tradition of a very strong collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. That means we in the public sector, we see it as our job to stimulate growth in the private sector. That requires, in many cases, national strategies where we redesign laws, support schemes. Maybe there should be more focus on some parts of university educations in order to create more candidates within a certain area. There are many different aspects of these things. It just illustrates that one of the unique things about Denmark is that as a small country, it's actually possible to work together, and that is a long-standing Danish tradition that we see pay off for private businesses. So last slide, please. So key takeaways. What is important when considering Denmark? Well, we have a very strong ecosystems within tech in general, and when you go into some subsectors, they are absolutely world leading. Denmark has a very good educational system, which means there is access to talent. It is in some respects, when you talk software engineers, for instance, also cheaper talent than countries like some of our friends in Southern Europe, especially. The infrastructure in Denmark is very good, and I don't mean roads in this respect. Obviously, it's IT infrastructure. The networks are in place to carry out also quite demanding IT solutions. The business climate is very good, and for foreign investors, the work-life balance and the quality of life in Denmark obviously also is a major part to take into account. So with those words, I would say thank you for your attention, and I welcome any questions you might have. I understand, Ambassador, that we take all the questions at last.
Yes, Andreas, you're right.
Thank you. Then
I will all the presentations and then the questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. And our next speaker is representing the Danish Business Authority. and she is going to talk more about how the process is in terms of registering a company. So I would request Ms. Laura Mastarelli, if I pronounced the name correctly, to go ahead with your presentation. Would you like me to also share the presentation?
Yes, please, Mr. Ambassador. And
Okay.
I would like to say hi to everybody. And first of all, thank you, the Ambassador, for inviting the Danish Business Authority to join today. Let's see, could open the slide.
Is this the one?
Yes.
Okay, great.
There we go. My name is Laura Perregard-Maestrelli, and I'm a special advisor at the Danish Business Authority. I work with business regulation. So my team assists anybody who would like to register a company in Denmark, or existing registered companies who want to make a change in their company, whether that be a conversion, a merger, a share capital increase, decrease, closure, opening of a branch, etc. I work from a legal perspective, as I have a legal background with a Master of Law. And I'm stepping in today instead of my colleague Morten, who unfortunately was ill. But what we're here to talk about today is registering a company, how to register a company in Denmark. So if I could ask for the next slide, please. I will introduce the agenda. First, I'll start by saying a few words about the Danish Business Authority. Then I will introduce our digital self-service solution. Then I will mention CBR, which is the Central Business Register that the Danish Business Authority also administrates. And lastly, I have attached some links and contact info for those of you who may sit with unanswered questions about the topic today. Ask for next slide. Yes, thank you. So the Danish Business Authority is part of the Ministry of Industry, Business and Financial Affairs. We are a very big house with more than 600 employees. And the Danish Business Authority basically has a mission to make it simple, easy, attractive to conduct responsible business throughout Denmark. We work with several areas, such as control and supervision of companies, international trade, corporate governance, CSR, much else, but not least also the legislation and administrations of the rules that apply for companies, here under also company registration. So how do we make it accessible and easy to register a company in Denmark? Well, we have a digital self-service solution that I will present in a second. That is a digital platform that is very user-friendly. Also, we have a public company register that provides free access to relevant information about all companies in Denmark to whoever stakeholder that may be. And that is also to support our principle of responsible business conduction in Denmark, by having transparency in data about the companies. If I could ask for the next slide. So our digital self-solution is, oops. The next slide, number 2. There we are. It's found by going into www.virk.dk. And I will apologize for this site being in Danish. I was showing the site and the flow, but as it is in Danish, I think that it will be more beneficial for the participants today by having an overview here of the information requirements that are actual here when you log on to Virk.dk in order to register a company. So in order to log in our self-service solution, first of all, you need a NemID, which is a self-service ID It can be personal or it can be an employee ID access. So when foreign businesses wish to establish business in Denmark, very often they can benefit by having assistance from a legal or tax counsel, because they may assist you also on the access to our self-service solution by using their employee ID access. So the first thing you will need to do once accessing our self-service solution, you will need to make a choice of company. And I won't say too much about all the type of companies that you can choose, because we do have a lot. And if, in order for you to choose the right company for you, I would advise you to seek some legal counsel of that, because there are many different ones. There are different capital requirements and different issues that might apply for your case. But once you've chosen a type of company, you will need to type in basic information, which would be contact info, name of the company. If you have extra names, maybe commercial names for them to be registered to. Then number 2 of the bullets here, we have number 2 is founders and management. So here you register who is managing the company. And if that changes along the way, you would need to register a change in that too. Number 3, we have purpose, power to bind, business codes. I won't say too much about that, but number 4, I will add some comments here: capital, financial year, and who will be your accountant. In terms of capital, there may be capital requirements depending on which type of company you wish to register. And in our self-service solution, we use what we call third-party approval. So that means that either a bank, a lawyer, or an accountant will need to make an online approval saying basically that the required capital is there. We distinguish between cash and goods, but either way, we have this system that allows a bank or a lawyer or an accountant to go in and verify this. Then we have number 5, which is ownership, which again supports our principle of transparency in our system. So you will need to register who is the legal owners and beneficial owners of the company. I won't say too much about number 6, business conduction and the Money Laundering Act, because it's fewer types of businesses that this applies for, and I would not think that it is very relevant for the tech business. I will though comment on number 7, which is documentation, where you would need a memorandum. That is 2 documents needed to register the company, which is a memorandum of association and the articles of association, which you would also be able to confer with legal counsel. After going through this flow of information and documentation, you're able to review and approve your application to register a company. I would ask for the next slide, please. So to sum up this introduction to our self-service solution, you need access through a self-service ID. There may be a registration fee. I didn't mention that earlier, but there might be that depending on which company form you wish to establish. Once you've accessed, once you've typed in all the information and documentation and paid the fee, you will approve your registration, and you will thereafter receive a CVR number. And a CVR number is basically a company ID that will be connected to your company forever on, and also be what you use whenever you want to make a change in your company, whether that being, like I mentioned earlier, it could be a conversion, a merger, a change in management, change in capital. It will be the same CVR number that is connected to these changes. And normally it works very fast when you register a company with the Danish Business Authority. Should be less than 24 hours unless there is some special complexity to the case. But in essence, it's a very fast process. You are able to get a CVR number quite fast. If I could ask for the next slide. So once you have your CVR number of the company ID, you will be able to use this and other stakeholders as well, this CVR number in our central business register, which is the CVR. So this is a public register, as I mentioned earlier, that contains all kinds of data on all businesses in Denmark. So this means that not only you, but also any stakeholder will be able to, or authority, to see all the information about your company. This is, like I mentioned earlier, some of the information on basic information, address, start date, and so on. It could be status. Is it a closed company now? Is it open? What was the date of this? Key individuals, the auditor, ownership, and so on. So this is, again, transparency that we wish to have here. I mentioned already this that I write here about if you wish to register a change, you would need your CVR number as well. I have the access link lined here in yellow, so you would be able to go in and check out our website, the CVR website, where you can see all data on all companies basically. And I can add here that we actually do offer the possibility of clicking English, so you would be able to get a notion of that already now, to see what kind of data is published in our register. Yes, and lastly, I have here some links and contact info to the Danish Business Authority. We have an English version and a Danish version. I attached both. And also the digital self-service solution Birk that I told you about is here, and also CVR, the Central Business Register. I know that we have a Q&A in the end where I would love to answer any questions you might have. If the case be that I cannot answer or there won't be time for so, I have attached here also a telephonic contact info and an email that you will be able to write to. With that, I have the last slide only to say thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this very clear presentation. And I'm sure everybody must have understood how easy the process is for registering a company in Denmark. And I think that is one of the reasons why Denmark is ranked amongst the top countries for ease of doing business. So thank you very much for that presentation. Now, in your presentation, you mentioned about the need for having legal assistance, and we also thought of that. And our next two speakers are lawyers. So I'll first have Mr. Kashif Qureshi, who is an attorney at law at Stage-On Law Firm. He specializes in litigation law and criminal law and advises companies and individuals in this area. He's also a former external lecturer at the Copenhagen University Faculty of Law. So over to you, Kashif.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. If we could be helpful with putting on my presentation as well, that would be appreciated.
Sorry. Is this the one? No. Just give me a second. I think I need to close the extra files here. Is that it, Kashif?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you for the introduction, Mr. Ambassador. As you said, my name is Kashif Qureshi. I'm an attorney at law here in Copenhagen, residing here in Denmark. So the purpose with my presentation, as all the participants probably will quickly see, is to get a feel of the legal system in Denmark and get some overview of how it works, but most importantly, get a feel of the system here. And I know after me, Søren is going to be more specific in regards to especially the tax elements in Denmark. If we could get the next slide, please. So we see the agenda for today in these few minutes that I have, according to the program, is to firstly say very shortly something about the Danish legal system, afterwards about dispute resolution, and then more specifically about business structures. And in the end, I'll say something about anti-bribery here in Denmark. So if we go to the next slide, what I can say about the Danish legal system is that it's basically and generally based on civil law and has the typical characteristics of what you would see in a Scandinavian country, meaning having a mixture of statutory and case law. The Danish legislation is, I guess, very similar to many other countries based on the constitution in Denmark, which is from 1849. And all legislation in Denmark must be compliant with the constitution, of course. Also regulation regarding the tech industry. And given that Denmark has a membership of the European Union, European Union legislation is also a part of the Danish legal system. So if we go to the next slide, like you said, Mr. Ambassador, I am a litigation lawyer, so of course it's naturally for me to say something about dispute resolution, even though that's a situation that occurs in the very end when we have some issues. So the Danish court system, as you can see on this slide to the left, is composed of 3 levels. We have the district courts, then we have the Western and Eastern High Courts, and in the end, we have the Supreme Court. So if we see firstly where it says the district court, we can also see I've written in, we have some specialized courts in Denmark as well. And we have the Maritime and Commercial Court, which can be chosen as a venue if you have a case regarding some specific knowledge, which would be relevant in a case regarding intellectual property. And if we look to the right of the slide, we can see alternatively parties can also agree upon dispute resolution via arbitration. So in Denmark, we have a well-established arbitration institute called the Danish Institute of Arbitration that has experience in besides national issues, also by many means in international arbitration as well. And the rules that are regulated, the D processes are regulated by, are very reminiscent of those of the International Chamber of Commerce. And this method of arbitration is, I know for a fact, positively, frequently chosen by international or foreign companies, mainly because the parties that are involved in arbitration choose their own judge or arbitrator on a case-to-case basis. Usually the process is also faster. If we then go to the next slide, this is more specifically, I guess, regarding different business structures you can have and choose in Denmark. It was something I was maybe anticipating some of the others would say something about. So forgive me if there is some repetition in it, but I don't think so for what I've heard so far. But you can say a foreign company contemplating doing business in Denmark, if it's a Pakistani tech company, can do so without any permanent establishment. So if you wish to have a permanent establishment in Denmark, there are several options. The most common option would be to have a limited liability subsidiary, as you can see on the top. circle in the slide that we have right now. And in this situation where you have a limited liability subsidiary, there's two different options that we have on the right. And according to what I've heard the ambassador say about which companies we're targeting here in regards to this webinar, usually it would be a private limited liability company, also called the APS here in Denmark, that would be the most relevant. And you can say in that both, even if it is a public limited company, both public and private limited companies can be used to conduct almost all types of businesses. But this would include businesses within the tech industry. And a private limited company is maybe, as it says, it'd be in other countries as well, less regulated than public limited companies. And what we're saying in that sense is that it's very easy if at a later stage it becomes relevant to change over to a public limited company to do so in Denmark. And to the left, lastly, in this slide, I know that many Pakistani companies in different European countries before have chosen with the option called a shelf company. And a shelf company is basically a company where everything is ready-made and you just buy it from whoever has made it without the person actually being active in that company. But yeah, talking in connection to what Laura says, it's so easy, the registration process in Denmark, it's so digitalized that I wouldn't say, in my opinion, it's any option that would have any benefits because the process wouldn't be faster by choosing a shelf company. So that's something that I wouldn't go for, in my opinion. And lastly, if we go to my last slide, you can say, besides Denmark being a country where it's easy to open a business, it's also a company that is consistently ranked among the least corrupt countries in the US. And we have a Danish criminal code, which is the main anti-bribery legislation here in Denmark. And that just means there's a lot of laws I won't go into, regulations I won't go into here, but basically what it means that active bribery, such as also granting a gift, would be illegal, and also passive bribery as well, meaning, for example, receiving a gift. So that's what I had basically to get a feel of the Danish legal system and how it works here. And you can see on the next slide my contact information, and feel free to get in touch if you feel to do so. And of course, on the Q&A, please, I'll try to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kashif. I think you have given a very important perspective into the legal side of having a business here. And we will continue with our next presenter, Mr. Soren Nielsen, who is attorney at law and partner at the Plesner Law Firm. Soren advises enterprises, authorities, foundations, associations, pension funds, and private individuals on tax matters. So he's going to talk about tax matters as well as bank account relating issues. So please go ahead, Soren, and I'll open your presentation as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you for everyone for attending this webinar. And for me, I would like to thank for being able to have this chance of participating as well. I'm a partner with Plesner and a partner in our tax team, and I will try to give you a very brief introduction to the Danish tax system. And the first, could we have the next? Yes. And here you can see the agenda, which is very briefly the corporate income taxes, withholding taxes, and also a little bit about how employees are paying taxes in Denmark, indirect taxes such as VAT. I'll also have one slide on that, and some compliance issues. And then I promised also to give a brief introduction to our experience in relation to the opening of bank accounts in Denmark. Next slide, please. The main feature is that the corporate income tax rate in Denmark is 22%. It's been for a number of years. And that's for Western European countries is a rather average rate. But please note that that Denmark only have minor social security payments resting on the employer. It's approximately $2,300 per employee per year. Many Western European countries have much higher taxes on the employer, social security taxes like these. But in that respect, Denmark is a low tax jurisdiction compared to other Western European countries. Of course, a main decision, not only a tax decision, but a main decision when investing and operating in Denmark is to whether you should operate through a subsidiary in Denmark or whether you should establish a permanent establishment in Denmark. Basically, the tax rules are the same, the tax rates are the same, and the way the tax is calculated is basically the same. There is no branch remittance tax in Denmark, so you could take out surplus cash from a permanent establishment without any tax. Then, on the other hand, payments such as, for instance, interest payments from a permanent establishment to a parent company in Pakistan will not be deductible for Danish tax purposes. But of course, the issue whether to operate as a permanent establishment or a subsidiary in Denmark also depends on other aspects than just purely tax aspects. The very normal thing to do is to operate through a subsidiary. It's generally considered the easiest way of operating, also compliance-wise. So normally there should be a special reason for establishing a permanent establishment compared with a subsidiary. Next slide, please. Denmark does have withholding taxes on dividends and interest and royalties that goes from Denmark to a parent or just to a group company abroad. But luckily, Denmark has concluded a double tax treaty with Pakistan. And that means that there is no withholding tax on dividends from Danish subsidiaries to parent companies in Pakistan. The same applies to interests. There is no Danish withholding tax on interest going from a Danish subsidiary to a Pakistani parent company. And royalties are reduced to 12% according to the double tax treaty compared with the normal tax rate of 22%. If you look into the double tax treaty between Denmark and Pakistan, you will see that Denmark also has the tax power to charge the technical services or charge the tax on technical services fees, but there has not been introduced any taxation of technical services in Denmark. So for that reason, that the tax rate is nil. Next slide, please. If we take a brief look on how is individuals taxed when they are working on a project in Denmark or for a subsidiary in Denmark, we could see on the left side of my slide that persons resident in Denmark will be taxed at progressive rates up to 56%, which is pretty high in international standards. But we have a special expatriate schemes for high-income earners coming to Denmark from abroad. And if you apply for that scheme and have a monthly salary of at least 69,000 Danish kroners, you will, for the first 84 months, be taxed only with a 27% flat rate. And that is, of course, a rather beneficial scheme, and also the reason why there are a great many foreign employees working with Danish companies. Also, you could imagine that you have individuals resident in Pakistan or in perhaps also elsewhere in the world, resident for tax reasons in those countries, but working with a Danish subsidiary. They will be taxed with up to 56% for work, but only for work physically performed in Denmark. So that actually means that if you are based in Pakistan but employed with a Danish company, and you go, let's say, 1 week every month to Denmark to liaise with the Danish subsidiary, then you will have to pay tax up to 56% for the wages for that week where you are physically present in Denmark. Also, please note that we have a special tax on hire out of labor in Denmark. That means if you are employed if an individual is employed with a company abroad, and particularly group companies, but actually performs work for a subsidiary in Denmark, there is a 35% flat rate, again, only for work performed in Denmark. And that might seem as a good solution if you compare 35% flat rate with the 56% progressive rate if you are employed with a Danish subsidiary. But the problem is that this tax is a tax collected with the Danish subsidiary, but it's payable on the tax or on the wages that is earned by the hired out labor, and it's probably very difficult. At least that's our experience in many other countries, to have a credit for this 35.6% tax. So effectively, there is a risk that you will have to pay, that the person will have to pay 35.6% Danish tax, and then on top of that, the full tax in the country where the person is resident. But again, this is only relates to work physically performed in Denmark. There is no Danish tax on people working, for instance, in Pakistan for Danish companies, even if they're group companies. Next slide, please. Few words on the indirect taxes. We have a VAT system with a flat rate or a single rate of 25%. Of course, there are also custom duties and excise duties, depending on the goods and services that they relate to. Next slide, please. Compliance. There's, of course, a system of corporate tax returns each year, and also a VAT reporting system, which is either half yearly, quarterly, or monthly, depending on the turnover. And then let me mention that we also have rules and transfer pricing documentation, and you should be aware that these rules apply depending on the size of the group, which means that there is a risk that that a company which has on a worldwide basis more than 250 employees is liable to hand in significant transfer pricing documentation in Denmark, even if there are only, let's say, 10 people working in Denmark. So while the corporate tax returns on the VAT reporting is normally reasonable compliance obligations compared with the activities that you are having in Denmark, then actually the transfer pricing documentation could be rather burdensome if the group as a whole has a magnitude that necessitates the preparation of transfer pricing documentation. Also note, we have a withholding obligation system on salaries, which means that the employer should withhold a preliminary tax on all salaries paid to Danish residents. Next slide, please. And then I have promised to say a few words on the issue of bank accounts in Denmark. This is not my area of expertise, but we do have some practical experiences with that. In general, a company operating in Denmark needs to have a bank account, not necessarily a Danish bank account, but it has to have a bank account that the public authorities can use for transaction going to and from public authorities to the company. And for that reason, in practice, it is a necessity to have a bank account. On the other hand, Danish banks are not under an obligation to offer a bank account, not even, of course, not a credit account, but not even a bank account is something that you have a legal right to have. And that means that banks can refuse to open bank accounts for any legal entity based on their general business policies. But of course, what they are looking at is the bank's risk assessment and also the burden on the bank on the various anti-money laundering compliance issues that the bank have compared with the revenue that the bank will expect to receive from the client. And we actually do see that banks are refusing to offer bank accounts also from in relation to ordinary and well-reputed foreign companies, simply because the Danish banks do not think that it's worthwhile to offer a bank account compared with the anti-laundering provisions that the bank will have to apply to comply to. So this is worthwhile mentioning, because if you are considering doing business in Denmark in a way where you would need a bank account, I think it is worthwhile. It would be wise to take this into account at an early stage, because it takes a long time to establish relation with a Danish or a European bank that can offer the relevant bank account. Formally, the bank can ask any information they would like from a business purpose, but of course the information they ordinarily require is the information that they are obliged to have according to the anti-money laundering provisions that apply to the bank, and these are information relating to the identity of the company, of course, including the CVR registration number, full information on the ownership structure, and including information on what is mentioned normally known as beneficial owners, which also means the individuals owning, for instance, holding companies holding shares in the Danish entity. And in relation to such beneficial owners and individuals, there should be sufficient documentation of their identity in the form of passports or driver's license or similar with a picture. And normally banks will also require information on the expected activities and volumes on the accounts in Denmark for them to be able to estimate the expected revenue for the bank if they offer a bank account. Yes, I think that was all I had in relation to the tax issues and bank account issues in Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Søren, for this very comprehensive presentation. I think you have very eloquently explained the tax structure here, as well as the fundamental requirements for opening of bank accounts. And I can assure you that money laundering regulations are equally tough now in Pakistan as well. And there also, it's not easy now to open a bank account. So it's becoming more of a universal challenge for businesses and individuals. So we have actually finished with the presentations right on time, 3 p.m. here. And now the floor is open for questions. So as I suggested in the beginning, you can raise your hands, and also you can post in the chat section and we'll take them up. So we have a raised hand here, and I can read the name is Sam. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. It's Abdul Samad from Mortgage and Fire, one of the participants, who exhibited in Denmark last 2 months back as well. My question is it necessary to be in Denmark to actually, register a company? Number one. Number two, what are the options available to hire somebody out there in Denmark if you need to hire an employee? Number three was, it's just slipped in my mind. Just answer these two questions and I'll write other questions in the chat. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I don't know whether Laura or Søren, either of you could take up this question.
Yes, I could answer the question. So your physical presence is not needed when wanting to register a company in Denmark. So in that sense, I also could add that I saw a question in the chat that was for non-EU citizens if they need to apply for a visa in order to create a company in Denmark. So the answer here would also be no, because you don't need physical presence to create a company.
But would you need to have a legal representation then in that case, in case you're not physically present?
Well, in terms of registering the company and getting the CVR number to access the solution that we offer, you need to have an MID, the self-service ID of some sort. So if one option would be residing in Denmark and accessing this. So if you are not, then an option, yes, would definitely be having a legal or tax consultant that has access to the system in order to file the application for registering the company.
So I think there is a connected question to that in the chat, and is Mr. Azhar Iqbal. He says that I have Estonia e-nationality. Do I have any benefit of that? So this is the first time I'm hearing e-nationality.
Yes. I wouldn't be able to answer specifically for the Estonian nationality ID. You would need to, when, for example, filing the founder, the key individuals, and so on, and when you wish to register, you would need passport information with photo, somehow identifying yourself. Whether or not because I'm not sure what the e-nationality for Estonia entails, so I wouldn't be able to comment specifically on that, but some sort of specifying your ID, where the normal thing would be a passport, for example, would be needed.
Okay. Søren, you have raised your hand, so I think you have more information to add.
Yes, because there was an additional question in relation to the hiring of employees in Denmark. And from a tax point of view, it is actually possible for instance, for a Pakistani company to hire a Danish individual as an employee without any specific tax registrations in Denmark. The employee will then will have to report and pay his individual taxes to the Danish authorities and be individually liable to that. But I would warn a little bit against it, because even one employee in Denmark working from his home office could be a permanent establishment in Denmark from a Danish tax point of view. And in that, if that is the case, then there will be a reporting and tax withholding obligation on the Pakistani entity. That would especially be the case if the employee in Denmark is working with customers, approaching customers in Denmark. But it's a case by case basis. You have to consider whether that particular individual is dealing only with preparatory and assisting services. In that case, there need not be a permanent establishment. But as soon as he is engaged with sales and activities directed towards customers in Denmark or in the Nordic countries, there's a risk that he will be considered a permanent establishment of the Pakistani entity, even that he is only working from his home office.
Thank you, Søren. And I think this aspect is also covered under the double avoidance of double taxation agreement, which I must appreciate you have gone in detail, and it's quite a complicated document. So thank you for that. So we have a question from Mr. Mohammed Owais. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for organizing this seminar. I heartily appreciate this. I am senior executive at Engineering Corporation, and we are a US-based firm with an operations office in Islamabad, Pakistan. I have a question about software development, and I would like to ask that if there was some sort of a platform of Denmark where Pakistani companies for RFPs that the software companies or government agencies require the software development for. So can we access where the for the software or the projects in the for Denmark or the Danish companies require that Pakistani companies can access? Same goes for the content technology and other wireless communication technologies as well.
Yes, your voice was breaking off, but from what I understood, your question is that is there any platform available in Denmark whereby Pakistani companies can access any requirements by local companies or government for software development? So I may request Andreas if you can respond to that question.
Yes, I also had a very bad sound, and I'm not sure I fully understood the question. So if a platform is sort of a combined marketplace, then no, that does not exist as such. Of course, all public tenders are public and available to any company, and any company may make a bid. What we normally recommend is that you engage with the industry clusters. So within tech, you have clusters of companies that engage in communication with, of course, themselves, but also with academia, so the researchers developing new solutions at universities, and that contact we can facilitate, and we also recommend that companies that establish themselves in Denmark join one of these clusters in order to benefit from the close contact with companies in a similar line of business. And of course, those networks is oftentimes what generate customers.
Good, thank you very much. We next have a question from Mr. Usman.
Yeah, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi Ali Salman, thank for the presentation. I just wanted to let you know that just a Danish feel from coming out from the Pakistan. So I have two questions actually. The first one is that is there any minimum prerequisite or monetary requirement or net worth, or you might say any age requirement for a company to start an office in Denmark? That was the first question. Second is, as you said that there should be, because we need to have a NEM ID. So we need to hire a consultant probably, right? So is there any other option, like a person or company resides here in Pakistan and they don't want to hire a consultant in Denmark? So is there any other option for the company? The third question, that's not a question, that's just a suggestion, that if there is any option available where, or any website maybe, which shows step-by-step instructions to follow the process, 1, 2, 3, like Lotus 1, 2, 3, just to follow the instructions, that here how you can start a business in Denmark. Yeah, that's
Good, thank you very much. I think these questions are all directed towards Laura.
Thank you for the questions. I've written down, I'm not sure I heard all of them, but I understood the first question being whether or not there is a minimum requirement of at least capital, was what I heard, or cash. And this would depend on which type of company you choose to establish in Denmark. So we have companies that do require, they have a cash requirement or capital requirement, such as the public limited company that was presented earlier, or also the private limited company that are the ones that have the largest capital requirements. So therefore maybe are the most relevant to mention here. A public limited company has a capital requirement of 400,000 DKK, where you need to have at least 25% in cash to be documented when registering the company. Whereas the private limited company, the APS, that was also mentioned earlier, has a capital requirement of 40,000 DKK, so some less. So those will be the main capital requirements that I might mention in this, because the rest of the type of company forms that may be structured can be done with various choices of capital, start capital. So these are the largest one to be aware of. The second question was whether or not counsel is needed, as far as I understood, in terms of the NEM ID and using the NEM ID. So if you are not residing in Denmark and therefore being able to access an NEM ID, it will be difficult in the sense that you may have an acquaintance, a Danish acquaintance, somebody with an NEM ID who is able to access the system, but it must be said that the person registering the company is also liable for the application to register the company, so is liable for all the information being filed, and that is important to be aware of as well, in the sense that they are representing whoever is registering the company in the moment. So of course there will be some considerations to do there, whether or not one wishes to use legal or tax or another counsel that has access to the system or reside in Denmark, and what the possibilities are there. And the third question I did not get.
I think the third question was that, is there any site or page where you can get like the information in the basic steps of how to register a company, which I believe you had already included as a slide in the presentation. So that we will be sharing with all the participants, so they will have that. So there is just time for one last question, and I was looking again at the chat, and it's Mr. Ashfaq. Kindly elaborate on the procedure for securing residence in Denmark for overseas investors willing to open a local subsidiary in Denmark. For this, may I request Andreas again, if you have any special procedure for investors to get local residence in Denmark?
Sorry, could you repeat that question? My sound was off.
Yeah, the question is that is there any special procedure for potential investors to get a residence status in Denmark?
Well, I think actually I would redirect the question to our friend from the legal side. I think it was touched upon there also. We do not facilitate immigration at Invest in Denmark, but obviously we see every day that foreign companies have staff here. So.
Okay. May I then request you, Soren, if you have any information on that?
Sorry, I need to unmute. This is not within my area of expertise, but I can confirm that this might in some cases be a problem. You do not need to have a residence permit in Denmark in order to own and operate a Danish company. But of course, if you want to have employees moving from Pakistan and to physically work in Denmark with a Danish company, they need to have a residence permit and a work permit. And this is not necessarily easy. It gets easier the more specialized and the more if we are talking about high fee earners that are specialized in certain areas that the Danish subsidiary needs. But there is an application procedure, and it's a decision on a case-by-case basis whether a resident and a work permit is issued. And also there is no, in Denmark there is no a special system that some European countries operate, whereby the investments in Denmark are linked to the possibility of obtaining a residence permit in Denmark. That is not something that is possible in Denmark.
Okay, thank you, Suren. I think Kashif, you'll have the last word, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes, I just wanted to sort of add to that, that it's been a topic here in Denmark recently that you need to have some specialized skills in order to get a work permit. So I think on the political level, it's something that you're looking at, but I can also confirm what Søren and Andreas before me also said, that it is an issue. But there's a web page where it's quite easy, actually, called New in Denmark. I can just give it to you, Mr. Ambassador, or the embassy, where there is a guide step by step where you can, how you apply for a work permit and what the requirements are.
Good, wonderful. So thank you very much, everyone. I think we've had an excellent session here where a lot of key and useful information has been shared by all our four presenters. And then this has been followed up by a very lively question and answer session. So I would like to thank our presenters today, Andreas, Laura, Kashif, and Suren, for giving us their time and educating all the participants about the process for opening a business in Denmark and for tech companies. And I would also like to thank the participants from the Pakistan side for joining us and actively participating in this discussion. So thank you very much. And from our side, we will be sharing information. We will sharing all the presentations, the link to the recording of this webinar. I'll get links to the copies of the strategy documents, which Andreas showed in his presentation, as well as information about the various industry clusters. So that all we will combine in a package and share with all the participants. So thank you very much once again, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.